Okay, cool. All right. No one's online. Okay. All right. You guys ready for answers? Okay. Clockwise. So if you look at the Pacific High, it's sort of out there somewhere between us and Hawaii. The winds are always rotating clockwise around it. So if you leave like on the Transpac California from California and going to Hawaii, you're on a southern edge of that high and you're following, I think it's the 1018 millibar line, sort of all the way to Hawaii, and you just kite up, blasting all the way to Hawaii with the wind behind you there. So, all right. Next one. Okay. Yes, you got it partly right. Underway in fog, the sound signal for a sailboat, if you're sailing, is 1 long, 2 short every 2 minutes. And then if you are under power, it's just 1 long every 2 minutes. And then the tricky part is if you're under power and underway but not making way, then it is where was it? 2 prolonged blasts if you're underway but not making way in the fog. There you go. All right, those are the mind benders for today. Everybody learned something?
Yes, your third one.
Oh, it's our third one. Oh, yeah, the MMSI number. Okay, there you go. It's a 9-digit number. Yeah, and it's basically the phone number for if you have digital selective calling enabled on your VHF. Like the full VHF radios we have at the dock do not have DCS or digital selective calling, but the one on the Catalina and the one on the Ranger 24 do. They both have MMSI numbers assigned to them, and they're on a sticker right next to the radio. So if you have a buddy with like a handheld VHF that's got digital selective calling, you can call each other on the phone and else is listening to you. But the cool thing it does for us is on those ICOM VHF radios that we have installed, they're connected to the chart plotter. So well, actually one of them has a little GPS antenna on it. So it's pulling in your latitude and longitude. So our MMSI number is registered with the Coast Guard. So if you hit that red distress button, you have to pull up a little lid there. And you press and hold it for, I think, like 5 seconds or something like that. It's going to send out a distress call. Essentially, the digital equivalent of a mayday. It's going to include a description of the boat that's been registered with the Coast Guard. So it's going to say it's a 27-foot Catalina white sloop rig sailboat, and it's going to say it's registered to Renton Sailing Center and the location. And everybody that's got a connected chart plotter to their radio, then we'll see that pop up on their chart plotter as a distress. So it's a really cool tool that we've got there. So that's and if you're a recreational boater, you just register it with Boat US for free. So that's how that works. All right, I've got a couple of announcements. All right, introductions. I'll go around. My name's John Patchett, president of the Sailing Center. I think everybody knows me. Chad,
Sergeant Chad Schumacher, we're calling Rachel. Nolan.
Master and small boat sailing instructor.
Cool. All right, well, that went quick. All right, let's see here. A couple announcements. I think everybody this weekend we had 25 participants. Maybe we just piled on too many events at once here, but anyway, that was really awesome. There's some really great pictures on the Facebook site, so go take a look at that. Everybody here is getting the newsletter except for maybe you. You can join our newsletter if you want.
Send it to me.
All right, fantastic. So you can stay in the loop. There's a couple cool things. If you're rigging the Quest, there's some details on rigging that. It's a little bit different in there, especially how you connect the tack, which is really important because someone broke off the reefing hook on there. And then there's also a nice video on how to an alternative capsize riding method called the California roll that's in there. So if you're don't have enough leverage to pull on the centerboard, there's a way to climb over and stand on the centerboard and get a lot more leverage to ride it. So take a look at those. There is a CPR and first aid class for mariners that if you're ever going for your captain's license, it qualifies for that. That's specifically for sailors. It's put on by Seattle Sailing. That's 2 days in October, the 21st and the 22nd. Looks like they've got registration on Seattle Sailing Club's website there. Let's see, we've got a couple of things. Most everything is in pretty good condition as far as getting fixed. Everything works right now, so that's awesome. So thank everybody for taking good care of the equipment. We do need someone who might want to volunteer to do some snorkeling while the water's still warm and scrub the boat bottoms. Anybody? Possibly. All right, I can give you some details on how to do that as we go along here. So thank you, Bob. So yeah, get to it while it's still warm before you have to really put on some wetsuits and stuff like that. You might still be able to get away without a wetsuit. So we've got a crew put together to source the leaks that a couple of the boats have where we can't figure out. They're gonna hook up an air compressor to them and essentially inflate the hulls and then soak down the whole thing and see where the bubbles pop up so we can figure out where to put some epoxy on those. But that's all coming together. Anybody, we have a trailer that we need to sell that the Hunter we used for the Hunter when we pulled it out each winter. Now we don't need it. Anybody want to take on selling a trailer once we figure out what the title is? All right, small group to all right. Anybody here? I know you dive probably, but does anybody else here dive? We need someone to dive and put some new C-links in the chain for our mooring field and inspect things. So get that newsletter and so we can get inspect the mooring field. Yeah, and then when Lauren dove it last time, there's a chain that goes all the way along the bottom between all those pilings that are out there. And then there's a shackle where it's connected to the rope that goes up to the mooring ball. And that shackle where it goes back and forth on the chain is starting to wear one of the links of the chain. So we just need to go down there and close that link through the shackle with a C-clip. Or I don't know, what do you call those things? It's just like it's like a chain link that you can open up on one end and put everything through and then you screw it closed. With a C-shaped shackle, I think is all it is. So yep. All right, that's it on my announcements. Did your slides show?
Yes, I forwarded it to you in email.
Oh, cool. Let me pull up my email and then we'll get going.
Okay.
All right. And this one. Oh yeah. And let's open up the other email. Bring your phone closer to this, maybe it'll go faster.
In the meantime, tell me. Sergeant.
Yep. Chat, see if you need. So that's all the contact information.
Great.
All right, something's happening here. Nah, but I promised I'd record it for someone, so. Yeah. Oh, but there was Pietro. I said, remember to hit record. Just leave that up here, I bet. Unless you gotta text somebody. Oh, you won't forget it. Yeah. All righty. There we are. Is that just a preview of it? I should probably just hit the download button.
Yeah.
Hey there, Anne. Oh, that's right, Anne was coming. Yeah. That's okay. That's right. You went to the retirement party before this, so that's okay. We're downloading slides right now, so you haven't missed anything. Yeah. Oh yeah. See if that popped into downloads.
Maybe close out some of the things.
Yeah.
Music might help.
I could do that.
The other email.
Good idea.
Slides.
I could. Something just downloaded. Okay, cool. Oh, that doesn't look right. Unconfirmed.
Like, what's this cookie sale?
It's basically just people come down. Yes. We got a couple of kids.
Yeah, whatever the Saturday or Sunday around Halloween is. Yeah. Did everybody show up with the captain's outfit? Yeah. Oh boy.
Saturday.
Yeah. And
Send out an email.
Me too.
yeah. Whoever's document, I just bring a jack-o'-lantern full of candy. Whoever shows up. Yeah. 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 But sail up to kids.
In previous years, basically, and small kids. And
yeah. Let's see what happens. Should we just scroll through your slides like this? They're not all loading yet.
Yeah.
No, all right.
It's still downloading a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, shall we shall we
we
get into it
Yeah,
while
we'll
the
start.
technology's doing its thing? So officially introduce you. So I
Okay.
introduce Sergeant Chad Schumacher. Mercer Island Marine Patrol's been great. I don't know if you guys, Brian, you might remember this. There was a couple of years ago that we called you guys because a homeless guy living on a 30-ton ferro cement boat decided our mooring ball was a great place to live. And so he threatened me. He reached into his companionway and I started rowing away real fast. And he said, "You should just call the police." And I was like, that's a really good idea. So I think you might know a little bit more about the backstory. 'Cause
Yeah.
You've been around, I think.
You've been around for a while,
14 years. So you probably run into that guy. And so, but it's really great the work you guys do, keeping our sailing areas safe, especially from folk boating while intoxicated. And yeah, I know you guys have provided assistance to more than one of our members out on the water too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but anyway, Sergeant Schumacher, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I would say I've ran into a couple of your guys's, I think a few weeks back. You guys were out with some new members and one went capsized and we're like, oh, we probably should go check on those guys. And they're like, no, we're good. We're like, okay.
Yeah, we do teach capsize recovery. so
Yeah.
Hopefully,
So,
most members,
no,
So.
yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm Sergeant Chad Shoemaker. I'm our Marine Patrol Sergeant. Typically I can scoot over so I'm not blocking the whole screen. Typically my Marine Patrol officer is with me, but he's expecting a baby any day now. And so, I gave him the night off from, presentations and everything. So, I figured he could be home with his wife in case she went into labor. But we do a lot of these types of presentations to community groups throughout our areas, just kind of let them know what we do, where we go and what our normal routine and day is like. And, even when, we start to have weather like this in the Pacific Northwest, that we're still out there and we're still available, even if there's not a true boating season going on. And so my slides are mostly just pictures of just stuff about us and what we do out here and about myself. So, oops, see, I've already messed it up. Yep, see, there we go. So a little bit about myself. I've been with the city of Mercer Island for over 16 years now. I've been with our Marine Patrol unit for 14 years. I've been in boating since I was a little kid. I learned to sail and drive power boats in the Chesapeake Bay when we were living in Delaware as a kid. So I grew up small boat sailing and everything. So I haven't been on a little small one man little sailboats. I haven't been on a sailboat, I'll admit, in a long time, and I'd love to get back out there and do it. But always enjoyed being out on the water. And so that's one of the biggest reasons that drew me to Mercer Island was they have boats. And so I went where I could drive a boat and be on the water and interact with the boating community because it's such a unique community. There's really it's a great group of people. There's an etiquette out there and just everybody's out there to have fun and enjoy the natural resources, when you're out there on the water. Part of my jobs is not only as a law enforcement officer, I'm a NASBLA instructor. So I instruct Marine Patrol officers across the state. So NASBLA is the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators. So they are kind of just a organization that helps kind of say these are the best practices and best policies for the boating Marine Patrol. Oh, is it going to work now? Oh, here we go. We got our PowerPoint. Nice. Right, we're ready to rock and roll. There we go. So I teach at the State Parks Marine Patrol. So within Washington State government is the state parks. And within state parks is the boating program. And under the umbrella of this boating program is marine law enforcement. So all of us report to the state our daily activities. So part of our funding that we get for our unit is a grant every year through state parks. So we report to state parks everything that we do, to include vessel inspections, time on the water, search and rescue missions, community engagements like these, and just pretty much everything that we do throughout the year. And so part of that helps us get grant money to help support our program. So with that, they also host trainings for state law enforcement or Marine Patrol officers. So I get to be an instructor for our basic Marine Law Enforcement Academy. And then I also teach the seated field sobriety tests. So just like there's the roadside field sobriety tests that everybody sees on TV, you know, the HGN, the walk and turn, and the one leg stand. There is a battery of tests that we can do on a vessel. We can't have you do the 9-step walk and turn because you'd walk right off of it. We can't have you stand on one leg because you're not going to have balance out there on a vessel. So there is a certified, field tested and lab tested battery of tests that we have that allow us to detect boaters that are under the influence. So I get to be an instructor for that course. I've taught twice this year, and I've done 2 years of teaching at our Marine Academy, and I've done 6 of those academies. So they're a week-long course. We go out to Kennewick, and all the Marine law enforcement officers come to Kennewick and spend a week with us. And it's a lot of fun, a lot of work, but a lot of fun. So that's part of me. Outside of that, I have one son. He keeps me really busy. He's a freshman in high school, plays baseball, which seems to take up every other bit of my time. But I enjoy what I do, and I especially enjoy the Marine Patrol. So our unit is comprised of Mercer Island police officers. Almost every single one of the Mercer Island police, every single Mercer Island police officer is also trained as a Marine Patrol officer. So that allows for our unit to be available 24/7. So it doesn't matter if we get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, or 4 o'clock, or a noon, on a Monday. We can respond. There's usually always someone on shift that can operate a vessel for us. So we do a wide range of engagements in the community. We do a wide range of trainings throughout the year. We don't just send them to the academy and then say, here's the keys to our boats, go have fun out there. We continue education, we continue training throughout the year. We send them to boat search and rescue. We send them to marine firefighting school. We send them to, we have, first aid and CPR and, other waterborne type of injuries that are out there, especially like prop chops and hypothermia and everything else. So how to deal with those. So our vessels are, I like to say that we're a police car, an ambulance, and a fire truck all wrapped into one, so that we can respond to just about anything out there. If a officer wants to be a Marine Patrol officer, they just got to show that they're proficient in, their current job, that they can, have some common sense. They're trustworthy, because we're handing them like a $500,000 vessel and saying, don't crash. Out there. So we are always evaluating them to make sure that they can, operate, because we get some nasty weather out there. So, it's not just those bright, sunny 90-degree days where you just have to putt slow. It's also those days where there's, bike caps and, rain and everything else that they got to be able to go out in. So, our vessels, we've come a long way since, one of our first vessels. We've had a iteration of vessels, throughout the years. This is one of our first ones, in our Marine Patrol. If you ever see, I think Donato's still has one of our old patrol vessels, the Munson. They have a Munson, that they use for towing. You can still kind of see Mercer Island Police or public safety on it, where the aluminum that the public safety in the Mercer Island, it has kept the aluminum pretty pristine. But now we have 3 vessels in our fleet right now. 2 of them stay in the water year round. Patrol 11 and 14 are the 2 vessels there on top. 11 on the left, she's a 31-foot Alomar with 2 inboard engines. We rotate our engines about every 3 to 4 years, depending upon hours. We usually get about 2,000-ish hours out of them before we rotate them out.
That's nothing.
Yeah, that's nothing. So we put them up on auction. Patrol 14, the 37-foot safe on the right-hand side there. She'll actually get new engines this winter. Mercury finally gave me my engines that I've been waiting for since December of 2020. So that I ordered, or 21, excuse me, December of 21. Mercury finally was able to get me my engines, so I'll be able to put new engines on her. And then the small boat there, Patrol 12, there on the bottom, she's our quick response boat. She usually sits on a trailer, so we can trailer to different agencies or different bodies of water if we need to. We also use her for training. She's easily towable. We can get her up and over the pass pretty easily without going, 2 miles to the gallon if we had to tow the other 2. They are huge, heavy boats. They carry upwards. 11, she carries 150 gallons of fuel. 14, she's 300 gallons of fuel. And then 12, she's 125 gallons of fuel. So they carry a lot of fuel so that we can, make sure that we have enough fuel out there to last a day. My chief was just asking me the other day, he's like, hey, what about electric engines? I was like, the horsepower is, really not there right now, nor is the battery life. I would love to say we could go green and everything, but battery life and horsepower, Patrol 14, she's got 900 horsepower behind her. Just because she's heavy, everybody looks at them and they're like, holy cow, you got 900 horsepower back there. But she's a heavy boat with 300 gallons plus, all the firefighting equipment, all the search and rescue equipment that we have on board. They're just big, heavy boats. So we've got to be able to move them. Both 11 and 14, like I said, have firefighting equipment on them. 11 is plumbed through the vessel, so we can just flip on our fire pump and start drawing water straight from the lake. 14, she's got just a couple more steps, but we can just start drawing water right from the lake and start pumping them out and start fighting fires. We can also de-water boats. We've done that a lot, where water boats just start taking on water for whatever reason, forget the plug or, capsize, or, a fitting comes loose and they just start taking on water. We can de-water boats and get them back to the dock before they sink. So our jurisdiction, we started with just us and Renton. We covered us and Renton, and then about a year or 2 later, we brought on Medina and Hunts Point, and then Yarrow Point was like, hey, us too. And we're like, okay. So that was pretty much status quo for us until about 2010. And then chief and they decided to go with Seattle PD. And so we lost the contract with Medina and Hunts Point. And at that time, we told Yar Point, hey, it doesn't make sense to go all the way up to Yar Point and bypass all this land. And so we're and they're like, yeah, we understand. And so we picked up Bellevue instead. So from about 2010 till about 2022, it was just Mercer Island, Bellevue, and Renton is what was our jurisdictions.
Okay.
And then last year, we got, and then this year we brought back Yarl Point. So we cover all the water from Yarl Bay all the way down to Renton and then all around the island. There's, you know, two small little areas that you see that are there around the Boarts area and around kind of this Kennydale new area that county patrols, but pretty much even if there was something happening there, we'd still respond and help out. The great thing about Lake Washington is if you call 911, either Mercer Island, Seattle, or county, we're all going to come if it's an emergency, and then we'll figure out paperwork later. You know, we're not going to say, hey, that's Seattle waters, they got to handle it. Yeah, if it's on the lake and it's an emergency, you know, you're going to get all three of us coming, and we'll work out the issues later. So you'll have, usually on the weekends and even during the week, you'll have all three of all three agencies out there. And then on big weekends, you'll even see Coast Guard out there, especially around Memorial, you know, Seafair, 4th of July, Labor Day. And then 4th of July also kind of coincides with Operation Dry Water, which is a national event of targeting boating under the influence. So Marine Patrol units across the nation just put emphasis on boating under the influence during the 4th of July weekend. So you usually get Coast Guard to come out and help with that during those weekends. So we run 2 vessels, Friday, Saturday, so we run 2 vessels Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 1 vessel Monday through Thursday. So we always have a vessel boating season out there ready to go. And then, like I said, even if we're not, if I'm not on duty or my Marine Patrol officer's not on duty, there's always someone available. And we'll go, you know, anywhere we need to. I was talking to Bainbridge Island today, and they were saying, hey, if we need help, will you come? I was like, yeah, I'll come. You know, I'll just call the locks and say, hey, I'm coming through, and they'll be ready for me. So we've gone as far as when the PGA Tour was here. We were out there off of the PGA Tour doing security zones for that. You know, we've gone anywhere our boats can get to. So
Can I ask who covers the southwest corner of the lake? So you got kind of an unincorporated area between Renton and Seattle.
yeah, so that's Bryn Mawr.
Mhm.
So that's King County.
Okay.
So Bryn Mawr is unincorporated King County. There, that M12 is unincorporated King County. So that's King County's water. So Bryn Mawr is covered by King County. So if you look at our map, all of the yellow besides M4 there is King County's water. So they cover starting at the bottom, M12 Bryn Mawr, M12 Kennydale, M8, which is Boarts, and then M1, that's Kirkland. There, M2 is the Kenmore kind of Juanita area, and then M3 is Lake Forest Park. And then all of M10 is Seattle, and then everything else is us. So
Does King County have a boat on the lake?
yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
I've
King
never
County has, they have two boats. Typically you see the Moose, it's a jet boat. It's a twin jet boat. Sometimes they'll bring their really large black safe boat with the four on the of it.
Usually more annoying, right?
Yeah, it's usually more at Des Moines. So sometimes when the
Sails out of there.
yeah, so usually if the moose is down, they'll bring that one over.
Okay.
And then they're also responsible for all the rivers in King County and Lake Sammamish. So the rivers kept them very, very busy this year, unfortunately. There was a lot of incidences on the rivers this year that kept them busy. So but I know they usually hang out up north, and then if
Okay.
I usually kind of cover the south end for them if
Okay.
need be. So
Well, that makes sense. If we
yeah.
couldn't see them from, we're on a sailboat, we hardly get north of 520.
Right, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of handshake agreements
Okay.
between our units, you know, especially during like seafair and everything. We have a lot of agreements that say, you know, we'll cover this for you while you do this for us, and you know, vice versa. So, you know, what do we do out there besides, you know, enjoy the beautiful sunsets every night? We do a lot of education and a lot of just safety is our main priorities, is safety. So with every vessel contact that we make, we do a vessel safety inspection. So we're checking life jackets, we're checking vessel registrations, we're checking boater education cards, fire extinguishers, sound producing devices, Type 4 throwables, you know, they have a encapsulated fuel tank, all that stuff. So we have a sheet, and we just write down the vessel information, the captain's information, and we just go through our checklist and make sure that they have all their necessary safety equipment. If they don't, the officers can decide to issue citations, or they can educate. We've seen a dramatic increase in people having all of the necessary equipment. You know, COVID changed a lot of things for a lot of people. But I don't think a lot of people realized how much it hit the marine industry. You know, because when everything was kind of shut down, people were looking for ways to get out and get away from people. Well, one of the easiest ways to get out and get away from people is get on the water. So boat sales were through the roof, especially in the personal watercrafts, your canoes, your kayaks, and your stand-up paddle boards. Those sales were through the roof. Your used power boat market, you could almost sell your used power boat for as much as you bought it for during COVID. I'm sure you guys probably saw that in the sailing market. You know, sailboats were, you know, horribly expensive, and probably finding parts were just as hard too. So if you could get your hands on a boat, you know, you were one of the lucky ones, and you know, it was just as easy to go to Dick's Sporting Goods, Walmart, or anywhere that sold an inflatable stand-up paddleboard, grab a paddle and go out to the water. But forget that life jacket. You know, no one we tried to get on a lot of those places to say, hey, if you're going to sell that paddleboard, sell that life jacket, put those things side by side with each other, because, you know, you have to have a life jacket with you while you're out there on those paddle crafts. You know, you don't have to be wearing it. We'd love to see you wearing it, but at least you have to have it with you. So with COVID, we saw a big increase of brand new boaters coming to our waterways. And so we drove home life jackets, whistles, and boater education cards. You know, and that was pretty much the state parks message too. You know, drive home those factors, because those three things were what were saving people. The rate of drownings in Washington rose dramatically in the human powered watercraft population. They accounted for over half of the state's population of people that drowned in Washington. And I believe it was 88% of them didn't have a life jacket with them. So when we say, you know, wear it, you know, my life jacket that I wear, you know, while on duty, I have a pin that says wear it. wear your life jacket. That's why you see it on, you go to a Mariners game, you'll see it on the billboards, as you're driving down I-90, 520, you wear it, it's just trying to drive home that message of wearing your life jacket. So, we do a lot of education out there with all of our boat stops. Also, we've seen a dramatic increase in private rentals. So people that will take, their privately owned vessel and then rent it either online, pretty much rent it online. So they either go through websites like Boat or Rent My Boat or Facebook Marketplace, and they'll just rent their boat out to someone that's willing to pay anywhere from 125 to $600 an hour to rent a boat out there for a couple of hours. So, and then the issue, it's all legal, as long as you have the rental agreement and everything, it's all legal. And the crazier thing is that you don't have to have a boater education card to rent a boat. The rental agreement covers you because it has a couple of the rules of the waterway, the rules of the road type of things that you see, a couple of the RCWs, a couple of the WACs, and they're supposed to read them and initial them, and it waives the liability of the person that's renting it and puts it on the renter to know that those are the rules and those are the rules of the road. So I would say a vast majority of our vessel stops are people that are renting boats out there. And then
Is there any move to require boater education?
I would say I've noticed a lot more this year of looking through those ads. A lot of the private people are requiring boater education cards. They won't rent them out to people unless they have one. So get to higher end boats, they won't rent them out, but you still have, you have the boat rental place up there in Kirkland and Carillon that rents out boats and jet skis and everything else. So, and then Seattle Boat has made it mandatory that you have to have a boater education card to get one of their memberships, which has been great. We usually don't have issues with those ones. So,
Okay. It's interesting. Yeah, I rented a boat in Missouri once and I whipped out my boater education card and they're like, we don't care. And
even a lot of states still don't require, boater education cards. Which, NASBA is working with a lot of those states to get them to, have mandatory boater education cards.
Interesting thing, like even to buy a 45-foot sailboat, you need a U.S. Coast Guard captain to sign off on your proficiency. You need insurance.
Yeah.
Surprised that insurance companies aren't just outright requiring.
Yeah, it would be nice. So a lot of the other stuff that we do out there, there's Sam there on the right hand side. We pull a lot of navigational hazards out of the water. The Cedar River every spring just pumps stuff in. I know you guys are usually calling me when things wash in, the south end of the island, and then this part of the east side, southeast part of Renton just gets inundated with logs, and it's crazy because they're not just sticks, they're trees and everything. They're it's amazing how many just trees and right to the lake when the ice melt and the snow melt starts coming down, and then you add the rains on top of it and everything just starts getting flushed out into the river or out into the lake. So we do a lot of retrieving of navigational hazards so people don't hit them and sink their boats out there. If you go underneath I-90 there behind our boats, you'll see our log pen. and it is just packed with stuff that we've pulled out of there. One of the big things that I've never seen before is the biomasses. We had a biomass this year that was about the size of a pickleball court that we could actually walk out onto and walk across. Came from probably somewhere in Seattle, broke loose because I noticed the lake this year, the high water mark was probably one of the highest high water marks that I've seen in a long time. Especially early on in the season, they really had the lake high. The Army Corps of Engineers really kept the lake high this year, and it broke this biomass from somewhere, and it floated all the way across, all the way into Maidenbower Bay, and right into someone's, right in between someone's docks. And so we had to find some way of finagling this thing and getting it out of there. We ended up probably breaking it into like 18 different pieces before we finally were able to kind of clean it up and everything. But late at night, hit something like that, and that because it's low in the waterway and you're not going to see it. So we try to get that stuff out of the water to kind of keep the waterway safe for everybody. Patrol 12, we like to take to different events. We'll bring it to, community events. We'll bring it in parades. We'll put it out in front of buildings that we're in for the day. Every April is April Pools Day, when the pools start opening up. So it's a water safety event where people can, the community can bring their children to a free day at the pools across the nation, and have a free day at the pool. And it's usually centered around water safety. So we always have a table there talking about life jackets and life jacket fitting. And so we bring our boat to kind of draw more people in and everything. That was one of the boats that we dewatered this year down there in Coulon. He had a fitting break loose on one of the jets in his jet boat. So we do, even in the off season, we still do a lot of community engagement. After COVID, we're trying to get back into the schools. We do a kindergarten water safety presentation where we talk about reach, throw, row, go, which is, try to reach them, try to throw something like a type 4 or anything that floats. We've talked about like basketballs or soccer balls or anything that will float, and then go get help. We don't ever want them to go into the water to try to help someone, because that only puts them at risk too. So we do a water safety event, water safety presentation in the kindergarten classes, and we'll do them in Renton, Bellevue, Mercer Island, and everything. So we like to keep our boats clean, and easy to do it. We'll just fire up the fire pump and, kind of close them down and keep them clean. We're always at, last year we did 2 pop-up events down in Coulon for water safety. This year we did a life jacket giveaway, or I got, I think, close to 200 life jackets for free from state parks. And any kid that needed a life jacket, we were fitting them for a life jacket and giving them a free life jacket. And that was from infant all the way to oversized adult. So if they needed a life jacket, we were giving them a life jacket. We have a ton of, Lake Washington has tons of events. You guys have regattas a lot out there. We have tons of swim events. We have Seafair every year, that brings our boats out. We like to come out to those events and just, make sure everybody's safe. Everyone that comes out on the water gets back off the water. I think next weekend we have the Sausage Pole, which is a canoe race that starts in Seattle, goes around Mercer Island, and then ends back in Seattle next weekend. So yeah, it's the Sausage Pole. So the top left picture is, from the Marine Patrol Academy. So those are all law enforcement boats in there and instructors instructors giving instruction to all the students. We had Swim Across America on Mercer Island just a few weeks ago. They raised over just shy of $500,000 for Fred Hutch for cancer research. They had a 1/2 mile, 1 mile, and 2 mile swim out there. We had someone try to give away a free boat in our boat launch parking lot this year. So I tried to talk my wife into it, and she's like, "Don't you dare bring that home." Yeah, no. It had painter's tape all around it to kind of seal the top and the bottom together. There was no engine, no steering wheel, no nothing. When we finally found the owner, we were like, "Hey, we're bringing this back to you." And
How nice.
yeah, we were like, we hooked it back up to my patrol truck, and we're like, "We're bringing this back to you." It's like, "Oh, okay." I was hoping someone was going to take it. We were like, "Yeah, we thought so too," but no. Yeah, exactly. Boats like to catch fire. They're fiberglass, and when fiberglass catches fire, they are darn hard to put out. The middle fire is a fire that I fought at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was an electrical fire from a shore power. So I know some, even your larger sailboats have shore power. Always make sure that, they don't have any nicks or scratches in the cable that provides it power, that they're not dangling in the water, that they have nice solid connections and everything, because this one didn't. And that was a 50-foot vessel that went up in flames 2 o'clock in the morning. The bottom left corner there is a vessel that had recently refueled, forgot to start his blower after refueling, left the fuel dock. It sputtered out. He restarted it and then became a fireball. Someone always puts their vehicle in the water every year at a boat launch. I think, without fail. I'll admit, half of the fun is going to a boat launch in the evening and watching and just sitting back and watching.
Is that what you guys do when you pull up there by?
Yeah. By Iris, it's usually to get something cold to drink, use the restroom, and just sit and watch. And everything. We also do a lot of ramp inspections there, so we try to get people before they even go out on the water to make sure that they have everything. So we'll sit there and be like, "Hey, we're going to do a check on your vessel." We'll check vessels before they even hit the water. So this year was this one was a new one for us. We had a derelict vessel that sank right there just south of Newport. It was a 34-foot cuddy cabin. Yeah. I tell you what, I learned a lot about the derelict vessel program and what it takes to get a derelict vessel out of the water, to take ownership of it, because I actually have to seize it. I have to take ownership of it, and then I can finally do whatever I need to do with it. So that was quite a process. The owner tried to fight us in court with it to retain it, because he's like, "Oh yeah, I was gonna refloat it. I'm gonna refloat it and get it working and everything," and it eventually just sank. And I'm like, "This is beyond your capabilities." Yeah, these are all that boat. Oh yeah. Yeah, so initially you could only see the fly bridge. So here's the fly bridge, and most of it's in the water by now. Yeah. So we had to bring, so Mercer Island has a dive team. So we have a dive team that does search and rescue, diving. And then we can also do work like this. We have lift bags that we can refloat anything from vehicles, boats, whatever goes in the water that needs to be refloated and brought back to the surface. We have the equipment to do that. So we came out and we did it as a training dive with King County. King County brought down one of their boats and brought down some of their divers, and they're like, "Hey, let us have some fun too, if you're going to be out there," and everything. So We brought out all of our divers and we attached lift bags to it and we got it floating just enough to, get it over to the Southeast 40th Street boat ramp. And then, when we got it to the boat ramp, as you can see down here in the bottom right hand corner, we also didn't know how big it was, and everything. And so that is one of my patrol vessel trailers. And so we're like, please let it fit on the trailer.
I
And
can't believe how big that boat is. I'm just.
yeah,
I was-
so yeah, so we finally, we had to use my truck and everything, and we towed it up onto the boat launch, drained a lot of the water out of it, floated it back out into the water, back quick enough to get the trailer underneath it, to get it up onto the trailer, and then we used every ratchet strap and tie down that we had to just strap it down to the trailer. And then we still couldn't get all the water out of it, so we just started punching holes in the bottom of the boat to drain more of the water out of it. So you can kind of see some of the holes that we were punching in the bottom of the boat. And so by that time of the day, when we finally got it, we thought it was only going to take us maybe a couple of hours. It took us all day to get that thing out of the water. And so by that time it was rush hour traffic. And I was like, I had to get a permit to dispose of it all the way out in Issaquah, all the way out in Hobart at the Cherry Hill dump. So we had to get a permit from them to be able to take it out there to dispose of it. So by the time we got it out of there, it was rush hour traffic. And I was like, I'm not towing this thing, through rush hour traffic. So we came back the next morning, I hooked up to it with our Marine Patrol truck. And then I had a police escort with one of our patrol cars. And he escorted me all the way out to Hobart.
Yeah.
And we took back roads, and I think I picked the narrowest roads possible to get out there. Because at one point he gets on the radio and he's like, hey, you need to move right or else you're going to take out the guardrail. And I was like, if I move left or else you're going to take out the guardrail. I was like, I'm going to hit the rumble strips and I'm going to lose traction. I was like, so it's either going to be the guardrail or everything. So we got it to the dump. We were 24,000 pounds on the scale when we finally got it to the dump. And then we tow it all the way up to the dump, and they're like, all right, we're going to hook it onto the back of the dozer, and then you're just going to pull your trailer out from underneath it. And it's like, okay.
Good for the trailer.
Yeah. And so unfortunately there was nothing on the back of that boat to hook onto. The only thing we could hook a rope up to was the propeller and the drive shaft, and we could not find a rope strong enough to last to hook up to the dozer. So they brought in the backhoe, and he dragged it off my trailer. And at one point, the back end of my truck and my trailer is sitting like this in the air. And then when he got it to just the bow on the trailer, my trailer is twisting, and I'm like, please go straight when it finally comes off. And then they disposed of it for us. But the cost for all of this is on us. And then we have to submit it to the derelict vessel program to get reimbursed. And then hopefully they'll reimburse some of the costs back. And then they go after the guy. So there is a derelict vessel program. So part of your vessel registration fees goes to the derelict vessel program. And Washington, you can actually go onto the webpage and you can see the list of every derelict vessel.
There's one with Renton Sailing stickers on there. Yeah, we forgot to take the stickers off. We still have a piece of paper that we signed the title.
Yeah. So you can go on there. And so when I talked to the guy with the derelict vessel program, he's like, is it navigational hazard? I'm like, no, it's grounded, it's not a navigational hazard. It's just an eyesore for, all the residents and everybody that goes by it. He goes, okay, we'll get to it in a year or two. And I'm like, I don't think the people are going to be happy with that. He's like, well, you guys can handle it, pay all the costs up front, and then submit all your receipts to us, and then get reimbursed. And then they go after the registered owner of the boat for recouping. But we had to have EPA come out and everything, because when we initially found it, it was floating off the south tip of Mercer Island, and it was just floating like this in the water. And so EPA had to come out and make sure that there was no gas in the gas tanks. So they brought out commercial divers to siphon the gas tanks. There was no gas in it. Thankfully, there was no oil in it. There was no batteries in it. I think the only hazardous material that they found on it was a can of oven cleaner, thankfully. So there was no, no hazardous material on it. So as soon as EPA found that out, they're like, we're out, have fun. And so then it became my problem. So that was a big learning curve for us this year. And then thankfully the state legislature shortened a lot of the timeframes for us to take over vessels and to be able to get rid of them faster. So it was a couple month long process, with each step being like a month long. Now it's like 2 weeks, process for each step. So it's a lot shorter. So the state legislature did us a big favor by shortening the process for us so that we can get rid of these vessels easier and faster. So yeah, so I had to, so when we put it over there in the Newport area, when we grounded it, I had to come back the next day and I had to tag it for seizure. And so I had to tag the vessel for seizure. I had to send him a certified mail copy of the letter, and I had to post it in the classifieds, which there's no classifieds. There's no classifieds. It's like, so I called the Mercer Island reporter. I was like, how do I do this? And he's like, you just go to this webpage and then it posts to classifieds, so they removed that now. I don't have to post it to classifieds. So he had 30, from the day that he received the letter, he had 30 days to notify me what he was going to do. And then he had, which he said he was going to try to keep the vessel. And then he had another 30 days to fight me in court over it. So we had to get our city attorneys involved in it, and eventually, and so he had one hearing, and he showed up with, and then my attorneys showed up, and he's like, okay, I'm in over my head. And he called me up and he said, I waive all my rights to that boat. You can have it. And so, but I still had to wait my days to take it. So if it was floating, we would have to hold it like at if you go to Seattle Harbor, they have like 4 or 5 that are floating that out there. Yeah, or they're by Gasworks Park.
Yes.
They have 4 or 5, and at any point the person comes and takes it, then the clock starts over. So if this vessel would have been floating, if he would have came and taken it, my whole clock would have started over. And so it's a huge, jump through all these hoops to try to take over derelict vessels and everything. So, fortunately and unfortunately, this one was just too much, and we were able to get it out of the water and get it safely destroyed and everything before it became too much of a hazard, or broke loose and just started floating everywhere. Yes, yeah. So the process will be a lot faster next time. So knock on wood, we don't have it next time, but I have a couple out there that I'm worried about. So, everybody always wants to talk about Seafair, Seafair is the one nightmare of my my job. My wife hates Seafair as much as I do because she never sees me for about a month, for about 2 or 3 weeks before it and about a week after it. I start August. It's always the first weekend in August. I start planning for Seafair in April. We start getting together with all of our partners that help us with Seafair. Thankfully, my predecessors have, made it a fluid thing, but each year we try to make it better and everything. So like this year, Seafair, well, I should say, over the history of Seafair, when we first started our BUI presence out there for Seafair, it was about 17, 18 years ago. And I was with State Patrol, one of the first years that we did this. And I later came to Mercer Island and started working for Mercer Island, but we used to average 160 to 170 BUIs over the 4-day Seafair event. We had on average 2 to 3 drownings, and a dozen injuries, most of them sometimes major, between prop chops or broken bones or slips and falls and concussions, or just alcohol poisoning, heat stroke, you name it. We saw it out there during Seafair. I like to say it's a lot through our efforts and a lot through education and the state legislature increasing the crime. It used to be just a misdemeanor, now it's a gross misdemeanor. There's a lot more heavier penalties for BUI than when we first started our BUI emphasis during Seafair. And I think a large part of it is due to all the hard work of the officers, through the 17 years that we've been doing this. So like I said, when we first started, we were averaging 160, 170 BUIs. You couldn't throw a rock without hitting 5 out there. Officers would find one, come in, drop them off, grab a hot dog, go right back out on the boat. Within 5 minutes, they were on another boat stop, bringing another one back in. We had 7 vessels out there, so 170 divided by 7, that's 20 a boat. 20 a boat. A weekend. That's almost 8 a day. Really, when you think about it. So that's a lot of work for those officers out there. This last year we had 26 BUIs, but we're now 2 years without a drowning, 2 years without a major injury, 2 years without a vessel collision. And so those are the numbers that we focus on. Those are our goals. Those are the numbers that we focus on. The alcohol is always going to be out there. Thankfully, people we still see the alcohol out there, but we're seeing more and more designated boat operators, which is a great thing. People are getting smarter. They're more educated about this. And they'll have the one person that is their sole job to operate the boat that day. And, they won't let anybody else touch the boat. And every boat that we contact, who's the operator, who's the sober operator. And, and then it's like, all right, everybody understands that none of you touch the helm, because a lot of people don't realize you can get 2 people for BUI off of one boat. One person operating the steering wheel, 2 for 1. You know, we've had that a number of times too. But, you know, people are getting safer, you know, we're starting to see more families coming back to Seafair. And everything, so it's been easier on us, you know, to handle Seafair. You know, it's still a big operation for us. It's one of the largest water events, and it is the largest water event in the state when we have it. Because there's thousands of boats out there every day. The races get smaller, but the air show gets bigger and it gets longer every year. I think break-in was finally at 4:30 this year. So, you know, it gets bigger and bigger every year. So we bring in, so we have at our BUI processing center at Proctor Landing, there's Mercer Island Police Department, Mercer Island Fire Department, there's Washington State Patrol, there's Department of Fish and Wildlife, there's King County Marine Patrol, there's Seattle Marine Patrol or Seattle Harbor, there's Seattle Corrections. We have a corrections van for people that need to go to jail. We have Washington State, we have the Washington State Patrol impaired driving unit. So that RV has the breath test machines inside, so we can process them right there. We have troopers on every vessel to make the arrest, no arrest decision based upon their experience with HGN and the horizontal gaze and nystagmus and their observations of the operator. And so because they do DUIs, you know, and so they've seen a number of DUIs, so they can tell the impairment. So we make the vessel stop under probable cause. We find a reason to stop a vessel. We don't, even though Washington law allows us to stop any vessel for any reason, we don't do that. We stop everything under probable cause. And then we start going through our vessel safety checklist, and we start talking to the operator. If we think that they're impaired, we have them come aboard our vessel and talk to the state trooper, and then the state trooper makes the arrest, no arrest decision. And then if they're arrested, they come back to the processing, back to Proctor Landing for processing.
So what happens to the boat that removes the operator?
So we try to find a sober operator on the vessel that is capable of operating the vessel, which there typically is. Or we can impound it as the other option. The hard part with impounding a vessel is a lot of the impound companies have sold off all of their property along the waterline. You know, so a lot of these, you know, tow companies don't have impound lots. They usually rent a place for the weekend, and they just hold the vessel for the weekend. And so we're always relying on the towboat, Vessel Assist, and Donatos to come up with that area. So it's always, you know, a game time decision whether or not we can impound a vessel, but we do have other options that we can do. And so we have a drug recognition expert from Seattle that comes over and spends the weekend with us. We have a phlebotomist on site. So if they refuse the breath test, we can write a search warrant. And if the search warrant is granted by a judge, we can draw their blood to determine alcohol concentration. And then we can draw it right there on site with a phlebotomist that yeah, pretty much. So we have a phlebotomist right there on site. We have a King County prosecutor on site to answer legal questions. You know, we get Coast Guard coming in, Seattle Fire comes across, you know, any agency that's out there comes across, and everything. So we've had, you know, the Admiral show up to our briefings, and everything. So, you know, there's a lot of agencies that go into doing this. So, but yeah, Seafair is probably one of our biggest operations on the water. It's the only time a Mercer Island police officer cannot get a day off It's actually
But you
black.
never take.
Yeah, it's blacked out. It is blacked out in our schedule. So, even if you have the day off, you're still working. So, either the road, and thankfully I-90 is not closed anymore. They moved that flight box south. They don't close I-90 anymore, which is probably, it is probably the biggest relief that we've had on the island as far as traffic wise. Because when they used to close I-90, you work law enforcement long enough, people know one way to get home. And one way to get to and from places. You take away that one way to get to and from places, and it's just, you got to go up to 520. Where's 520? What is 520? And everything, and you got to turn around, go back east, to go back north, go back west, and everything, and it's just a nightmare. So, but Seafair is a lot of fun, as long as we don't have the Canadian wildfires and blowing the smoke down in and it's not 100 degrees out there. So, but it's a lot of fun to work. But at the end on Sunday evening, you're just dead tired and you don't want to see another boat for a while. So
Seattle police has to deal with the shenanigans in Cocktail Bay there.
yeah, Seattle takes care of Andrews Bay and the log boom and everything else. And then we handle all the moving boats and the lines and everything. So
You're operating both north and south of I-90.
correct. Yeah, so we deploy half our assets to each line during the air show. And then during break-in, we'll kind of help monitor break-in. And then once break-in is done, then we're just in that zone, monitoring and patrolling that zone. And then I'll send one of my vessels out into my other jurisdictions. And then part of that handshake agreement I have with King County is they'll respond to our calls for service in our other jurisdictions. So outside of that, that's my presentation. If you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. I've also left my business card with Judy. And so I know everybody's like, oh, I wish I would have asked that question. So email is the best way to get a hold of me. It's always on my phone. Usually during the boating season, I'm always on a boat, so I'm never at my desk. So people are like, I left you a voicemail. I'm like, yeah, you got to email me, because then I see it and I can actually, respond to it right then and there on my, on my phone or when I'm on the boat and everything, and I can respond to emails a lot easier. Or I can, call you if you leave me your phone number and your email and we can talk over the phone. So happy to answer any questions you guys have.
I don't think you've ever boarded one of our boats. Sailing Center.
I don't think we have. I think just no probable cause. I think the only time we've ever encountered you guys' boats is probably, either when you guys have, capsized practicing and we, or we just see you guys out there and wave as you guys go by, or if one of the log booms break loose.
Oh, yeah.
We've come out there a couple of times, or we've had when Renton had their 4th of July, we've had a number of boats get tangled up in the chain, when it used to be just chain and not those big booms.
Yeah, they used to have like actual logs.
Yeah, yes, they used to have actual log and chain.
Yeah.
We've had a number of boats get tangled up in that, and we've had to get them loose before.
So speaking of logs, if we see something that's a danger to navigation, should we be calling you guys?
Yeah, you guys can call our non-emergency line and just say, hey, this one's floating, or this one's along a shoreline, or this one's up against this dock.
Okay.
And we can come down and get it. We also maintain all the no wake buoys out there in all of our jurisdictions. They get hit and everything, so we maintain all those too. So if you guys see one, you're like, hey, there's usually no wake buoy out there, right there in that spot, let me know.
Okay.
We have them all on our chart plotters, where they all go and everything. They're all numbered on our chart plotters. And so we can come by and get those replaced.
It's like,
The loaner life jackets?
yeah.
Yeah, we have one at our boat launch, and then we have one at our swim beach. Our Parks and Rec department manages those. And so usually I have a couple of life jackets that I get from state parks. We carry extra boats, so if we encounter people that don't have life jackets, we usually give a life jacket to them and usually the ticket with it. But like, here's your ticket, but I'm also going to solve your problem at the same time. So, but we usually have a couple of extra life jackets on the boats with us. So
About how big is your staff?
we're fully staffed right now. We have one in the academy. As far as Marine Patrol, I have 26 of us that are Marine Patrol officers. So, there's quite a few of us, all ranging in experience. Some of them are, I think 4 of them are brand new this year. We trained 11 last year because we had a lot of turnover, and then during COVID we couldn't get anybody into academy, and so we were able to send 11 last year and 4 more this year. So we have 15 newer boat operators, but then you have some of us that have 14, 15, 16 years of boating experience. A lot of us have our captain's license. I have a 50-ton master class captain's license and everything, so a lot of us have captain's license and everything. So so we all range in experience. We try to pair up a newer boat operator with an experienced boat operator, so we don't throw 2 new guys out there and they're like, you know how to do this? No. Do you know how to do this? No. And so, and then they're not calling me on the weekend. Hey, Sarge, how do we do this? Yeah.
Yeah, but
Not very often. We get the occasional jumpers. Usually they're the thrill seekers. Yeah, we get a couple of those every year. The East Channel is.
Yeah.
East Channel is, or if you wait yourself. But most of the time it's just the kids that we're like, well, see, I'll go this high off. They usually go off the span between Mercer Island and Seattle, and they're like, I'll go this high off of the East High Rise. Well, I'll go a little bit higher than you do, and everything, and we'll get and everything. And so what DOT, since DOT's office is right there, they're usually down there on the they'll call us and be like, hey, we had some jumpers, or and everything. So
have you seen an uptick in floating homeless? Either people kind of living on a boat just floating around, or people breaking into unattended boats and living there for a while? There used to be a guy who lived under the 520 bridge in a big canoe with his dog.
Yeah, we haven't had that big of an issue in our areas. Most of the municipalities along the waters all have city ordinances, vessels for habitation. We're able to kind of prevent that through local ordinances. So a lot of the harbor codes for the municipalities in Lake Washington have so to have for prevent a lot of that type of stuff. There was a burglary this year in Yarrow Point where someone came by paddleboard, but that they came from Kirkland 2 guys came from Kirkland on a paddleboard, Lights broke into a house and then on a or across the that was one of the first ones we've had in probably 10-12 years, you know. We had a big spree of paddleboard thefts and just like unsecured items on docks. We usually have sprees of that where people will just kind of come by boat and they'll just see what's unattended or unsecured on docks. And so usually those are your paddle boards, your canoes and your kayaks and everything. They'll be unsecured on the dock. And those are easily stolen. And typically they're really hard to get back because there's not a HIN on a lot of them. There's no real identifying marks or information because they all look the same. So but we've had those, but when stuff like that occurs, we'll put out special patrols. A lot of our boats, even though they're big fast boats, a lot of our patrols is just slow patrol along the shoreline. We'll operate at just below that no wake speed, and we'll just drive the shoreline. A lot of my days I'll start here in Coulon and I'll just drive the shoreline and stop every once in a while. I'll find a vessel stop, I'll stop it, go back to driving shoreline, especially in the evening. We'll sit in our bays in the evenings and watch for people, watch for the big rafting parties up in the north, especially in like Cozy Cove. We'll get upwards of like 10-12 vessels rafted together, so we want to make sure that those aren't, intoxicated operators when they leave. And so we spend a lot of time just really watching, then, just because you can go from one end of the lake to the other in 20 minutes and you're like, okay, what do I do now? It's that slow patrol. And then usually we find that shade in the evening and tuck away into the shade and watch. So
we filed a boat accident report.
yes, with the jalapeno and I can't remember
and Gren.
Yeah.
Seattle.
Yep.
So what happens with those when?
So yeah, that's a great question. So there's a couple requirements for a vessel, what we call a boat accident report, so a bar. If the bar is required by the state to be completed by the boat operator, so you guys, and that is when there is a loss of life, an injury beyond first aid. So if they get treated at a hospital, if they get anything beyond like just being if they get transported to the hospital, that's beyond first aid. If there is more than $2,000 in damage to a vessel or private property, or if the vessel is a complete loss regardless of value. So even like your $200 canoe, if you sink it and everything, that requires a bar.
Oh, wow.
So the bar is filled out by the vessel operators. If there's two vessels, they're filled up by the vessel operators. So the ones that you guys did, it talks about, date, time, the when and the where and everything, who was operating, all the vessel information, what led to the collision. There's like a narrative section where they can write out what happened in their words and everything like that. The bar can't, if it evolves into a criminal case, the bar can't be used. Anything you put in the bar can't be used against court.
Okay.
So that is, your opportunity to tell the state, here's what happened in our collision and everything. It's just like information. It talks about like, were life jackets worn, what types of life jackets, were they useful, were they not used, did they prevent, drownings, did they not prevent drownings, were there fire extinguishers involved and everything. So all that data gets sent to me, and then I all the accident reports from across the state. They compile all the data and then they send it to Coast Guard of all the data across the US of all boating collisions and everything. So state parks keeps what happens in Washington, and then Coast Guard keeps what happens across the nation. So it just gets funneled up. We don't retain copies of those. So if you submit a bear if you submit a bar, that goes to state parks. State parks are the custodian records, so we don't keep that. Anytime that there's a death or a drowning or a disappearance or injury beyond first aid, we come out and do a boat accident investigation report. That's completed by the officers, and that is just the boat accident report that you guys do, except for a lot more detail. And then that report is submitted to state parks as well with the bars and everything. And so it's just more paperwork. So, and then if the boat operator is not capable of doing the bar because they're the person that drowned, we have to do the bar and the bear and get it to state parks. Yeah. Yeah, and then there's actually, by law, there's actually timeframes that we have to have those into state parks. So and usually if there's a death or a disappearance, they have to be in within 3 days. So
People disappear very
there's a couple out there in the lake that we don't know where are.
If it's the life jackets,
Mhm.
everything,
Everything against them, yep.
yes, so. And then looking for them, they would go out and look,
Mhm.
and then, so after a couple of days, and the family kept looking, no one could find him, and that was, like, it's gonna happen, but the family basically was told, like, no, wait 5 days, and they'll probably start loading up. Sure enough, that's what happened. Oh,
I've got one that's been missing over a year out there. He's probably in about 200 feet of water. County's got one that's been missing about 2 years. I know Seattle's got a couple. So there's so many things that go into the refloat of the body of a person. A lot of it depends upon body type, body type, what food and drink they've had, how deep they are, because when people drowned, they pretty much drown in a straight line down, and then they'll expand out probably about 10% of width as far as the depth. So if it's 200 feet down, there's about a 20-foot radius that they're going to be within that area. Just depending upon if you have a current or other stuff like that. If they have, and their clothing plays a part in that. There's so many variables that play a role in that and everything, but 200 feet down, you're talking very, very cold water, so your body's not going to decompose like you would think about in other warmer bodies of water. So that the decomposition of a body releases gases you know, if the gases don't have a way to escape the body, that's what causes the bloating, and that's what causes the refloating. So if that's not allowed to happen because of atmospheric pressures on the body at extreme depths, they're not going to be able to refloat. So there's so many, there's so many different variables that come into play there. So. Yeah, yeah. Thankfully, the technology has there's a lot of incredible technology out there that aids us in searches. I just got done today with a 2-day class on side scan sonar. And there's a company out of Norfolk, Virginia, that has a towable, looks like a torpedo, and it's a towable side scan sonar. And you know, it tows behind the boat, and it operates at 900 kilohertz and 1800 kilohertz, and it of, you know, the bottom as you go by, and you can easily identify. I mean, he was showing us pictures of, you know, wrecks and of everything. So, you know, there's stuff like that out there. There's a guy here in the area that would volunteer. We had him come out a number of times to help us search for missing people in the lake. He had an ROV. It was probably about, you know, this size of the table right here. And it had side scan sonar on it. It had GPS coordinates on it. It was operated by a fiber optic cable that came up to a laptop computer, and he could, you know, plot out a course, hit go, and that ROV would sink down, and it would just skirt the bottom of the lake, and he would just watch the side scan sonar on his computer and search for us, you know. So but you can send that thing down, you know, super deep, you know. And so there's, you know, there's technology out there. Unfortunately, it's horrendous expensive, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's agencies in our area that have it. So even though if I don't have it, I have, you know, people that do, that we can call out. So. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
What's the best way to get a hold of you? We do have an emergency.
911. Yeah, just call 911. You'll either get, depending upon where you're at in the lake, you'll get either Renton dispatch, you'll get Norcom, or you'll get Seattle.
Okay.
And then they'll probably take your initial information and then wherever it needs to go, and then it'll get to us.
Okay.
So we get, you know, we get information from Valleycom saying, hey, you know, an incident is happening down at Sheen, you know, fire. And from, because we get dispatched out of Bellevue from Norcom. So same thing with Seattle Harbor. Hey, this came from Seattle, you know, just because it's whatever cell tower you hit, whatever cell carrier you have, it's whatever one picks it up, it kind of kicks it to wherever is closest. So even if, you know, you're out in the middle of the lake, you know, you'll Renton Fire even responds. They have a little dinghy that a little Zodiac that
They did a presentation for us last year.
yeah, they'll come out, and we've had them assist us on a lot of calls and everything. So they'll usually get down to Coolon with one of their boats and put it in the water to come out and help. So yeah. 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 Yeah, we do. Yeah, UAVs are getting more and more popular. So, but yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, thanks so much for.
Yeah.
I do have a gift for you.
Oh, you guys didn't have to do it.
Some sales. We have.
Oh, right on. Thank you.
Hopefully that you can carry some of your gear down. To
Yes,
that.
that'll be awesome.
Best while you're out there and everything.
Yeah, and then send me guys' new newsletter.
Yeah.
That's excellent. In April, we are doing an on the water demonstration for the Footloose Sailing Club.
Oh, yeah, they're in Leshai,
Leshai.
and they work with disabled sailors.
Yes.
It's really cool. And
We're gonna do a presentation with them on our ability to extricate people out of water. So they came to us this year because they're like, we've never had it happen, but just in case we do, if we capsize and we can't get them back in the boat due to paralysis or missing a limb or just inability, who do we call? It's like, well, you call us. And so we're gonna do a demonstration for them, I think the last Saturday in April. We're gonna come out with our boats and some of their sail boats and do a presentation on retrieving people from the water and everything, and some of the equipment that we have for getting either unresponsive or uncooperative people out of the water, and how we can get them into our boat and get them to shore. So I'll send that information to you when we have more of it nailed down and everything. So if you guys want to come out with your boats and see it, happy to invite you guys out there.
Right. It's sort of along the same, just gonna mention, and usually in April, we do our dockmaster training. So we do a demonstration on a mast tip recovery to assist a capsized sailor and the roll recovery. So you can use a powerboat to help ride a sailboat. So we'd love to have you guys out for some additional training around small boats.
Yeah, send me an email. I guess email is the best way. No, send that knocked me out. So
Glad you're better.
yes. So thank you guys very much, and
Thank you.
Yep. Putting a chair, I disassemble the technology.
so and feel free to send send my information out and slideshow out to anybody that wanted to see it and everything.